Well, up next, the latest on the escalating Congress Shashi Tharoor controversy. Tensions flared as Tharoor, leading a parliamentary delegation on the Pahalgam terror attack response, praised the Modi government's anti-terror strikes, drawing ire from Congress leaders. Jairam Ramesh distanced the party, stating that Tharoor's views aren't those of the Congress, while Udit Raj accused him of aligning with the BJP. There is speculation about Tharoor's future, with some seeing his independent stance as being possibly ahead of an exit. But as the Congress grapples with his global appeal versus party loyalty, the rift has clearly deepened. Let's listen in.
And let me say to you, this is going to be the new normal. Our Prime Minister has made it very clear. Operation Sindoor was necessary because these terrorists came and wiped the Sindoor off the foreheads of 26 women by depriving them of their husbands and their married lives. In fact, there were some women who cried out, "The terrorists, kill me too." And they said, "No, go back, tell what happened to you." We heard their cries. And India decided that the color of the Sindoor, that vermilion color on the forehead of our women, will also match the color of the blood of the killers, the perpetrators, the attackers.
शशि थरूर जी बीजेपी के सुपर प्रवक्ता हैं, जो बीजेपी के लोग नहीं कह पा रहे हैं। मोदी जी की चमचागिरी या मोदी जी का गुणगान जितना वो नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, और बीजेपी के लोग उससे ज़्यादा शशि थरूर कर रहे हैं। शशि थरूर को पता है कि पहले की सरकारों ने क्या किया। पहले की सरकारें ढोल नहीं पीटती थी। सेना की कार्रवाई का लाभ लेने के लिए कांग्रेस पार्टी उसको पब्लिक डिक्लेयर नहीं करती थी।
Well, joining us now, Nija Chaudhary, Radhika Khera of the BJP. I'm also joined by Sanjay Jha. Thank you very much for being with us. Sanjay, let me come to you first. Why does there need to be so much difference within the Congress party on an issue which, sort of impacts us all? We've all been hit by terrorism. We've had a big military operation. It seems to have ended relatively well for us. This being the case, if Shashi Tharoor talks about Operation Sindoor, why is it so problematic for some Congress leaders?
Well, I can tell you one thing, Vishnu, that I think the Congress party was asked to nominate 4 people from the party for the overseas delegation. Personally, in my opinion, I do believe that Shashi has excellent credentials to be part of the India's diplomatic offensive. Having said that, the party, for reasons best known to itself, chose not to do it, which I felt was rather inward looking, because there are times you got to be less parochial and provincial and look at the fact that, ultimately Shashi is being endorsed by the same government that has criticized him in the past. And by the way, Shashi is one of the biggest critiques of the Modi government, especially on secularism and its authoritarian culture, and currently the way it's throttled fundamental rights. So if Shashi went to represent India, and he remains a committed person to the idea of India, which is something that the BJP principally fundamentally opposes, I felt the Congress had to kind of make that concession to say that if you were part of this entire overseas delegation to go and talk to the international community on what happened between India and Pakistan, and why India's position needs to be more aggressively kind of propagated or promoted, I don't think the Congress should have had an objection to it. I think what is happening today, though, is that a couple of leaders who are, I would say, probably acting in an extremely immature way to say that Shashi is a spokesperson for the BJP is rather infantile and absurd. And I don't endorse these statements. I don't think the party should. However, having said that, the truth remains that the BJP has made it so polarized, Vishnu, that any opposition party finds it very hard to fathom as to how they can be on board with BJP's, even when they are looking at an all-party delegation. People are like cry wolf, they don't trust this party anymore. And I think that trust deficit between the two major national parties is what is manifesting itself in the current Shashi Tharoor episode.
And just for the benefit of our viewers, we did reach out to the Congress party to be a part of this debate. They chose not to be a part of it. I think that's that's unfortunate in the context of certainly this debate. But Radhika Khera, I think the larger question is that Shashi Tharoor is now a veteran politician. He certainly knows his politics. He knows what he says is being heard far and wide, not just outside the country, but inside as well. Does he have a future in the BJP?
Good evening and Jai Hind. I'm glad Mr. Sanjay Jha took this stand because he's also faced what Shashi Tharoor is facing today, and he was moved out as a spokesperson for
Radhika,
speaking
I
his
asked
mind.
you a very direct question.
I'm coming to that. You didn't interrupt when he was speaking.
Oh.
I'm just saying something nice about Mr. Sanjay Jha. I've always gone against him for once. I'm lauding what he has said. I'm appreciating it.
He's
because
smiling.
he's gone through what Shashi Tharoor is going through.
He's
Having
smiling.
said
Now
that,
answer my question. Does Tharoor have a future in your party?
This debate isn't about Shashi Tharoor. It's about a party where patriotism is punished and Pakistan is protected. Shashi Tharoor stood up abroad and said what every Indian knows. Pakistan is a global factory of terror and India has every right to strike back. He raised what the women lost, families were destroyed. He raised the emotions of the country and what everyone is going through today. But instead of backing him, the Congress exploded. Not at Pakistan, but at Mr. Tharoor. Udit Raj mocks him by calling him a BJP chamcha. Pawan Khera accuses him and says that he's denigrating Congress in history. Jairam Ramesh delivered the final blow by saying that these are his personal views and not the party stand. Let that sink in. A senior member of parliament speaks the truth about terror state that's attacked us for decades, and the Congress rushes to distance itself. What exactly is the Congress afraid of? That Pakistan might get hurt or that India might get united? That is the main question. This is the same party, Vishnu, that has opposed the 2016 surgical strikes, questioned the Balakot airstrikes, and even doubted the martyrdom of our soldiers, just to score their political points.
Okay.
And today they're at it again. When India is striking Pakistan, Congress is striking India's unity. When Tharoorji speaks for the nation, his party speaks of their insecurities. Operation Sindoor wasn't just a military success. It exposed something far more dangerous, the intellectual cowardice of the Congress. Because when it comes to national security, Congress isn't confused. It's complicit. And that's what we are seeing over here.
Okay.
So it isn't about who Mr. Tharoor is going to join or not join. And why can you not say the same thing when you're saying something abroad? Or agar yahi problem thi, to bheja kyun? You should have kept
No, but
the
you still
delegation
haven't
back.
answered my
There was
question.
nothing-
You have been very much a diplomat and you should have gone outside and spoken on Sindoor and all. You've totally not answered my question. But be that as it may, Nirja, is the Congress's criticism of Tharoor's leadership, in your opinion, is that driven by internal factionalism, or is it some sort of a disagreement with his bipartisan approach to national security? Is it the issue which is really at heart, or do they just not like Shashi Tharoor anymore?
I think, Shashi Tharoor, the differences between the high command of the Congress party and Shashi Tharoor have been growing. That is an open secret. Then the way the composition of the delegation that was to go to various world capitals was made has also riled the Congress, because the government asked the Congress party for names and they gave 4 names, 3 of which were rejected by the government. Now, it must be remembered that this was a government delegation. This was not a parliamentary delegation, where the leaders of the parties, the names they give are accepted. Now, the government on its part, having talked to Congress leaders Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi, it was not very nice to get them to give names and not have them accepted. But having said that, as far as the delegation goes, there are ex-MPs in it, there are security experts in it. It's not only a multi-party delegation of MPs. So the government had the right to decide finally who should be on it. But it could have been done with more grace and keeping in mind the sensibilities of the Congress party, having sought their opinion on it. But having said that, if you look at the way you like Shashi Tharoor or you don't like him, that's a separate story. If you look at his performance, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Guyana, whether it's in Panama, I've been hearing, listening to the YouTube press conferences or speeches that he's made, you cannot fault him. He could not have done better. The Congress is again riled by the fact that he's talked about surgical strikes only in 2016 after Uri. and that during Manmohan Singh's time, there had been surgical strikes which had not been spoken of or flaunted. That they may have a point there. It was Dr. Manmohan Singh had a very different style of functioning. It was a different government. Today, this government, makes much of what it does. We know
Sure.
that. And
Sure.
social media is there, other media is there. But as far as the performance of some of these people, of congressmen who are abroad, even of Saduddin Owaisi, who's now emerging as a nationalist Muslim. Shashi Tharoor, if there's one politician who's come center stage of politics after Pahalgam, it is Dr. Shashi Tharoor. And therefore, for the Congress party, I think they could have waited, even if they had points to make. They could have waited till these delegations came back home.
All right. Sanjay, to you next. Do you believe that it's odd that the Congress hasn't addressed their leader Udit Raj's rather inflammatory remarks, calling Tharoor a super spokesperson of the BJP? What does that actually have to say about where Tharoor stands within the party? I mean, they've distanced themselves from Tharoor's comments abroad, but they haven't distanced themselves from what Udit Raj has said, at least not that I'm aware of.
Well, I mean, for that matter, the BJP has taken no action against Vijay Shah, who insulted Colonel Sophia Qureshi. I mean, it hasn't taken any action against the Deputy Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, who said that the Indian army bows down before Mr. Modi. And that Rajya Sabha MP who said that the widows of Pahalgam, had they had the necessary wherewithal, they would have fought against the terrorists, so actually putting responsibility on the tourists. No, I don't think we should get into that kind of a slugfest, Vishnu.
Okay.
The truth is that individual leaders have their own viewpoints. I know for a fact, I've been in the Congress for a long time, to tell you that there will be people who will be miffed with Shashi. But the bottom line is that in terms of pure credentials, I think here is a man who could have been the UN Secretary General. He is a career diplomat even before he became a politician. And I know Shashi well, and anybody who's read his books will know that foreign policy is something that literally is his second DNA. So I think the Congress here should have been smarter and let the message across to the people of India that the BJP, after calling the Congress party anti-national for the last 10 years since Mr. Modi became Prime Minister, now needs an export from the Congress to burnish India's image abroad. You have to know how to, if you get a lemon, make a lemonade.
Okay, Sanjay, half a second. Radhika, 30 seconds. I'm running out of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I need to make one thing clear what Ms. Neerja ji said over here, ma'am. The former DGMO, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, who has served under the UP, has said that surgical strikes are new. And this was the first time after Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's government came that we went and struck at terror camps in such a coordinated way. And also, Prime Minister of that time, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had said on record that we exercised restraint after 26/11 because we are a responsible nation. P. Chidambaram in 2016 said we considered it but decided against it. Rahul Gandhi in 2019 in his rally said we did not strike back after 26/11 because we did not want war. So there were no surgical strikes that were conducted after 26/11. And as far as Mr. Shashi Tharoor is concerned, yes, he's a very good diplomat. And why we chose him and Manish Tiwari ji, who was a former International Students Union chief, who was representing over 178 or 170 odd countries. So we chose those people over a Gaurav Gogoi, whose wife has links with ISI in Pakistan, over a Raja Brar.
That's a separate debate. We'll keep that for another day, but I'm out of time on this. Again, this debate on Shashi Tharoor and his political future is something I sense we'll hear a lot more about. Moving on, a critical climate update. A new report says that there's an 80% chance that the next 5 years will include the hottest year ever recorded. There's an 86% likelihood that 1 year in this 5 will breach the 1.5 degree Paris Climate Agreement, with a 70% chance of average warming from 2025 to 2029 exceeding 1.5 degrees centigrade. Joining us now, Harjeet Singh and Raghu Murtugode, to give us their sense of what we are staring at. Mr. Harjeet Singh, to you first. If we are crossing that Paris Agreement threshold, is it something that can be reversed easily, or even if it is reversed, will we see the impact of that reversal only be upon us many years later?
So Vishnu, as you rightly said, this is a very critical warning for the world and especially for India. 2024, we've already crossed that 1.5 degree threshold. And as scientists say, it is temporary because when we talk about the longer term temperature rise, we still see hope that we'll be able to bring it below 1.5 degree. But this particular report is very stark because it's talking about the next 5-year prediction that we are going to have an average warming between 1.2 to 1.9 degrees Celsius, which means we are very likely to cross that threshold, which is extremely worrying because every fraction of a degree matters. And we are talking about a warming that's going to translate into severe and frequent heat waves. Let's talk about India, which is already grappling with it. It's about health impacts, strain on our energy grids, and reduced productivity. So we are looking at increasing intensity and frequency of disasters that we're already grappling with. And that's extremely concerning for India as an economy and also for its people.
Mr. Murthugunde, in terms of climate change, I mean, it keeps changing from year to year. It keeps changing from region to region. We have floods in one area and droughts in another. In your assessment, what are we seeing in India so far? We've seen an early onset of the monsoon, which is welcome news at one level. But is that also part of a variation which we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we have to remember is that everything is now happening in a warmer world. So everything has a component of warming in it. But monsoon onset is very much a weather phenomenon. The previous early onset was in 2009, and early onset doesn't always tell you what the season holds because 2009 had a May 23rd onset, but it turned out to be a very severe drought. So we are still evolving and we are expecting a break now. We had lots of pre-monsoon, and hopefully, the forecast say we'll have slightly excess rain this season. Hopefully that's what will happen. But as you said, the amount of rain almost has no meaning now because how it is distributed in space and time is much more important. So we are already seeing some dry patch from Delhi down into Chhattisgarh, Odisha, even as Delhi is getting excess rain. Northwest is expected to get floods. So you will have probably droughts in parts of Maharashtra and Karnataka. So this is what we have to deal with. Of course, it is related to global warming in the sense everything is coming from the global scale, but we have local amplifiers that we have to worry about. All the land use change we are making, deforestation, urbanization. So it's a bit of a problem, but fortunately, we are also growing our early warning systems and they are becoming better, and DMA is doing better. So we are getting better at handling these things, but there is a longer term resilience and adaptation needed as well.
Mr. Harjit Singh, in fact, that was my next question. The ability to actually forecast climate change patterns and risks, is that at all feasible? I do know that there is very advanced computation which is going into it, but are we reliably placed to know whether we face extreme events in a finite period of time?
Well, in terms of early warning, Vishnu, we have been doing pretty well. And the kind of science that exists and the kind of capacity we have, relying on climate models, you can't fully rely on them because the way things are changing, but we can predict and we can generate that information and we can even pass on that information. And we have been doing pretty well, as Dr. Raghu said, in terms of early warning. I think the concern is what happens after that. When there is a major disaster and the kind of disruption it causes to people and economy and the time and money it takes to recover from that is something that we are not ready for. I must say the amount of money that we have allocated for adaptation, as Dr. Raghu said, it's so important. It has not been enough. States are not ready. Districts still are working on their adaptation plans. And we are talking about a world where sea levels are rising, our coastal cities are at risk, our coastal economies are at risk. We need to make sure that our agriculture is climate resilient. We need to protect our economy. We need to make sure that we have enough systems in place to protect people from heat waves. We are going to see intense bursts leading to floods in some areas, and some areas are going to face drought. Are we ready for that erratic weather patterns that we are seeing more and more? I don't think our infrastructure is still ready, and the unpredictable monsoons are a major threat to our agriculture systems, our food security, and our economy. So adaptation is something that is really lacking in India, and that's what we should be most concerned about at this moment.
Professor Murthugunde, a last word from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we do breach 2 degrees on a consistent basis, there is no return, right? we will then be looking at a fundamentally different planet Earth. 1.5 degrees we shouldn't get over, but there's hope that we can turn it around. But if we get to that 2-degree mark, it's our way of living would essentially change, right?
I'm not a big fan because remember 2 degrees C came from Bill Nordhaus in the 1970s. It's not a scientifically derived target, but as Dr. Har Singh said, every 0.1 degree warming is going to be bad for us. Is it a point of no return? Sea level rise is kind of a one-way street because glaciers melt. They don't build back so quickly. They take, geological timescales to rebuild. But a lot of the things like heat waves and extreme rainfall can begin to subside. And especially if we do adaptation, not only in terms of how to help people deal with this better, but reforesting and doing the urban resilience, giving rural people the tools to deal with the heat waves, agricultural adaptation and protection for crops. So we are doing better. The earlier point about early warnings model, India announced a 6-kilometer model. We're going to combine it with artificial intelligence to produce hyper-local information for dealing with risks. We are mapping risks for agriculture, water, energy, food, transportation, health, etc. So we will get there, and we are getting there. India has invested well and is headed in the right direction, but we can hardly keep up with the changes. So we have to constantly keep moving faster and faster to keep up with Mother Nature.
All right, well, Raghu Murthugude and Harjeet Singh, I'd like to thank you both very much for being with us.